Hello everyone, my name is Tamiwa Ladikomo, and this is the Next Wave by Tech Cabal. On the last episode, we spoke about why infrastructure is the key to Africa's digital future and what it will take to solve Africa's infrastructure problems. Today, we're looking at not a sector, not a trend, but a whole region. The tech industry in Francophone Africa undoubtedly got a slow start, and for a long time, it didn't generate as much attention as its English-speaking counterparts. However, last year, in 2021, Wave, a fintech startup headquartered in Senegal, raised a $200 million Series A round of funding at a valuation of $1.7 billion to become one of the continent's few unicorns. Well, they had our curiosity before, but now they have our full attention. We're keen to know everything that's going on with startups and technology in Francophone Africa. Who's building in obscurity in Senegal, Cameroon, Mali, Burkina Faso, the Gambia, and more. There's a lot to parse in French-speaking Africa, and we're keen to get into it. Joining us today for that conversation are Moulaye Tabure, co-founder and CEO at Anka, Rashmi Pillai, Anglophone Head of Public Policy at Wave Mobile Money, and Rebecca Enunchong, founder and CEO of AppsTech. Welcome to you all. It's great to have you on the show. We're going to get started with Moulaye. So Moulaye, before Wave's $200 million raise and their unicorn valuation, Francophone Africa was relatively quiet, at least for those of us not inside of it. A lot of the buzz was around Kenya, Egypt, Nigeria, etc. Despite the lack of noise from Francophone Africa, you guys have been building for a while. So it'd be useful to get your overview on what the startup ecosystem, what the technology ecosystem has been like over the last few years before we all suddenly started paying attention in 2021.
Hi, everyone. Of course, thank you for the opportunity and glad that we can speak a little bit more about Francophone Africa and like you mentioned, from just curiosity to grow into genuine interest and attention. And what I can say to answer your question over the years before the big wave raise, mostly tech startups in Francophone Africa were busy surviving, to simplify the answer. I think a big difference that we always had was never about the numbers made or how great the tech was, but mostly that because Francophone African entrepreneurs had very, I said, difficult times getting access to capital, especially because they could not count into going to France or other I might say ecosystems to get attention and funding. They were focused on being profitable. And that, I think, is the big difference that you can see in the noise being made.
Okay, yeah. I think that's an interesting thing. You say that about African startups in general compared with Western startups, for instance. Profitability is always more important. But I imagine in a region like yours, it'll be even more important. I guess let's talk about markets a little bit. What are the key players and the key sectors in Francophone's tech industry that someone who's uninitiated should be paying attention to?
Of course, there is all the mobile money and fintech guys from Wave to Orange to MTN, and all the great companies building from years to make them accessible. So I'm thinking about other fintechs like Julaya, CNetPay, InTouch, all of these great companies. And for example, I could give the example of InTouch that has been operating for almost a decade now. I've raised funding with Total and major groups, but never made the headlines in the tech world in Anglophone parts because it was corporate money, corporate VCs, and not American or anointed international tech VCs investing. But that, I think, is a great example of the type of players we have been having for years in Francophone Africa and the type of players that people should know about when they come here.
That's useful, thank you. And I think for people who haven't been paying attention, all of that is a useful introduction to the ecosystem. I mean, if we move forward a few years past the valuation, what's changed? I know there's more media attention now. Are you seeing a different investor base coming in? Where are you seeing investor attention coming from? How is it shaping the industry?
I think the first thing that changed is it was clearer for us in Francophone Africa that we had to also have a faster Pan-African ambition. I believe a lot of the companies that I know, I can give you, for example, PAPS, doing logistics, etc., were doing an amazing job in their countries, but maybe we are not as fast as other logistical companies to go multi-countries. And that was also linked to the fact that they were not as quick to raise funds. We were first asked, and I think it's also linked to who were our initial funders. A lot of the initial funders in the Francophone Africa were angel investors, and generally people that are closest to family, friends, or not really former entrepreneurs, or not really, I might say,
Professional
VCs or
investors.
tech guys.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we were building tech companies, but with a focus of building companies before the tech, to be clear. And then, since the valuation increased all around us, and we saw that more and more of the company that were getting this great valuation were looking to come into our region, we were able to finally put the tech and the growth of the tech that we had first in how we pitch, who we were pitching, and how we were raising.
That makes sense. And that's definitely a positive evolution in the way the industry is growing. I want to talk about Anka specifically, which used to be Africare. Can you tell us a bit about your journey, what the successes have been, what the challenges have been, what the product is for the audience who doesn't know?
Yeah, so I will start with the product. So Anka is the global and commerce app for sellers that want to sell anywhere in the world and on multiple channels. So we allow people to get paid, ship easily, and manage orders, may it be on social media, their website, or other marketplaces. So we provide a unified SaaS solution to sell everywhere and anywhere from Africa at the better rates and better services than they can have on their own. So that's what we do. And we started initially first on the marketplace. So like you mentioned, Africrea. That's what we are known for, and this is still there. Africrea.com is the largest marketplace for all things made of Africa. So mostly creatives, products like fashion, art, food, or beauty. And to this day, we processed over $40 million of transaction on our multiple services, and in 170 countries. So we are one of the very few startups that is focused on making Africa not only consume more or just spend more or send more. Our job is really to help them earn more, sell more, and create more value.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Moulaye. It's been a really, really interesting listening to you and learning a bit more about the region from you. We wish you good luck with everything that Anka is doing, and we look forward to having you again sometime in the future. Now we're going to move on to Rashmi. Hi, Rashmi. Welcome. Until Wave's announcement, all of Africa's unicorns had emerged from English or Arabic-speaking parts of the continent. Before Wave became a unicorn, only about $26 million had gone to startups in Senegal in the whole of 2021. Why has it taken so long for tech to blow up in Francophone region? Like, what are the big barriers to scaling?
Thank you, Tomiwa, for having me on your show. I'm excited to be here. First and foremost, at Wave, we are both honored and humbled to be the first unicorn from Francophone Africa, and we hope that it paves the way for more companies to reach that status. Now, you've asked the question of what does it take for tech to blow up in the Francophone region. There are several, and I will focus on two. The first being policy and regulation. Policy and regulation can be enabling or they can be barriers. An enabling policy environment to innovation is an enabling policy environment for investment. If there is clarity on what the regulations are, how they are enforced, is there truly an impartial, competitive financial market? If that exists, it means that innovators in the financial services space can grow their business. It means there is legal certainty for the businesses. If there are anti-competitive practices, they know that regulators or any other regime that's enforced will come to play. There's recourse for their challenges. All of these factors tell you the story of an enabling business climate. An enabling business climate is what attracts investments, because then the investors only have to focus on the investment worthiness of the business. Are the founders good? Do they have a good vision? Can they execute on that vision? Is there a product market fit? Are customers excited about the product? That's what investors would then focus on, because they don't have to worry about factors outside of their control, which are largely business climate related. And just to make a comparative example between Anglophone versus Francophone markets, there are these business climate challenges even in Anglophone markets. But when it came to financial services, what regulators and regulatory language took was a test and learn approach when it came to financial services. They said, yes, there's a lot of innovation. Regulation is yet to catch up, but we're going to monitor these products. We're going to monitor these innovators. We don't want to kill the innovation even before we've seen what the uptake is, what the risks are. So they took a risk proportioned approach and allowed for some of these innovations to grow. And then regulation came in, but it also took into consideration a lot of these innovations that were happening that allowed for them to grow and blossom. That being said, Wave is a beneficiary of the changes in regulatory environment in the Francophone region. And a great example would be the fact that we are the first non-bank, non-telecom operator to get our e-money issuance license in the region. We serve multiple markets in the West African Monetary Union, and we're the first to get it. So we do see a change in the regulators in the Francophone region. We are confident of the business climate in this region. Now, the second big factor or driver that I wanted to talk about was the size of the market. Some of the largest investments that we have seen on the African continent the past decade has gone to Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, Ethiopia, some of these bigger markets. When we talk about Francophone markets and we're talking about scale, because investors want to know what does scale look like, if we look at the Francophone markets put together, the 34 countries and regions, we're talking about a total of 141 million people. Compare that to 200 million people in Nigeria. Like the business, from a pure business perspective, it's very obvious. That being said, we are seeing, again, a lot of tech innovators coming out of Francophone markets. We are seeing them build products not just for the domestic market, but for the region. And they understand the potential of scale of growing across markets. So those will what I would say are the two of the biggest barriers, but we are seeing change.
That's really, really enlightening. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I love the fact that regulation and policy are moving in the right direction. But let me ask the question around market size. How does Wave answer that question when your investors ask? And how are you thinking about your growth as a company?
Wow, another tough question. All right, Tomiwa. So, but it's also a very good question, right? So for Wave, Wave's mission is to build to make Africa the first cashless continent. That tells you about how big our vision is, right? And it began with Francophone Africa because we believe in the potential of multiple Francophone markets, and then we are moving towards Anglophone markets. So when we've looked at what is it that we can contribute to financial services, we looked at a couple of factors. One is mobile money is relatively mature in multiple countries, but the experience with mobile money. So I live in Uganda, and I can tell you that Uganda is a relatively sophisticated mobile money market. But even and I can get credit on my mobile wallet or MTN or Airtel. I can get insurance. I can get overdraft facility. It's all in partnership with other financial institutions. Despite this degree of sophistication, the user experience is fraught with so many challenges. The pricing is exorbitant. When you talk about interoperability between wallets, which is moving money from my MTN wallet to my Airtel wallet or any other operator, very expensive. Until Wave came to the market in Uganda, it was very, very expensive. So even in mature market, the user experience is suboptimal. And Wave's mission is to first be extremely customer-centric, solve customer pain points, and then grow with our customers. We want to build the financial rails on the African continent. We are not going to stop at mobile money. We want to offer savings. We want to offer credit, insurance, and in partnership with other financial institutions. But the aim is to help our clients, which are people and businesses, grow. We want to help them achieve their ambitions and help enable in their prosperity.
We're going to take a quick commercial break now, Rashmi, and then we'll be back with the audience on The Next Wave by Tech Cabal. Welcome back, and thanks for sticking with us. Before the break, we were speaking with Rashmi Pillai at Wave about the barriers to scaling in Francophone Africa. Now, Rashmi, What are the factors that have driven Wave's success in the region? What early steps did the company take that really contributed to the growth that you've seen today?
At Wave, we're very proud of our ruthless focus on customer centricity. We keep clients at the center of everything that we build and all decisions that we make. I gave you previously, before our commercial break, I gave you the example of my own personal mobile money experience. So there, we spoke to customers before we started building the product. The founders, Lincoln Quirk and Drew Durbin, spoke to several customers in Senegal and factored the challenges that they were experiencing in mobile money in designing the product. So the typical customer complaints are, it's so difficult to use the product, it keeps dropping, there's timeouts, etc. So there's product frictions, there's user experience friction, the pricing is exorbitant, and it's very confusing in case you send money to somebody else. What are the recourse mechanisms, to get the money back, etc. So there's a trust problem that people had in leaving money on their wallets and continuing to use more sophisticated products. So they would use it just for the most dominant use case, which is person-to-person payments, domestic payments. And we factored these customer pain points in designing the wallet, in designing the solution that we're building. And we know that the solution that we are building is going to be the rails on which we can build more and more financial solutions. The second one that we think is one of our biggest strengths and also challenges for us is having a vision that's massive. Let me give you an example. In 2017, the World Bank put the number of people in Africa that are unbanked at 98 million. It's done as the FINDEX, which is the Financial Inclusion Index report. And Wave's vision is to build universal financial inclusion on the African continent and make the African continent cashless. And payments is just one of the ways that we're going to do it. We will build and partner with other providers to offer all of our customers more and more solutions. And our vision and challenge is inspiring. It has inspired talent. It has attracted great talent for us on the continent. It is also inspiring for us to be able to contribute to the continent and the economic growth that we'll be able to contribute to. So those are the factors that we believe are great for Wave success.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rashmi. It's a really exciting vision. I can see why people are keying into it. We're looking forward to having a lot more conversations with Francophone startups doing exciting work, and of course, with Wave, as you guys can progress in your journey. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to speaking with you again soon. I'm going to move over to Rebecca now. Hi, Rebecca. How are you doing?
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for joining us. So one of the fastest moving trends that's really synonymous with Francophone Africa is mobile money. Sub-Saharan Africa generally leads the world's mobile money markets. And in the Francophone region, the four biggest mobile money markets are Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, Mali, and Burkina Faso. What do you think the potential is for these countries to become even more important players in mobile money on the continent?
I think one of the really incredible things, one of the exciting things, is that a lot of these Francophone countries share a common currency and a common central bank, which means that it's easier for them from a regulatory standpoint, from a foreign exchange standpoint, to scale across their region. So you have two regions that have a single central bank. One is West Francophone Africa, where the four countries you mentioned, Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, Mali, and Burkina Faso, are members of that community. And then you have Central Africa, which has 6 countries. And so, so that's an advantage over other countries where, if you want to scale, you have to then comply with new regulatory conditions in the countries you're trying to scale to. And so you have, about 200 million people in that zone that share this common currency. And so there's a lot of ability to scale. Also, if you look at the number of people that are banked, the unbanked, the percentage of unbanked in Francophone Africa or Western and Central Africa, you'll see that there's a much higher percentage of unbanked than in a Nigeria or a Ghana or South Africa, which means that the ability to transact using only a mobile phone is incredibly important. And remember that the technology behind mobile money is not internet based, right? It's still, what we call USSD, which is codes. And so, a lot of people, they don't have access to the internet, cannot afford internet, can still transact even in very, very remote areas using a feature phone, a regular, mobile phone, and do not need to rely on internet. So I think there's a lot of growth. There's still a lot to be done with mobile money. It's kind of discouraging when we see some countries that are starting to adopt tax, like Cameroon did, starting to tax not just the mobile money transactions, but the wallet itself. The transactions, the fee that comes with the transaction had always been taxed. And then, but now the transaction, the amount in your wallet that you're moving, like handing over to somebody else, is also taxed. And I think that's kind of discouraging. But in the other countries, we see that, the growth is huge because the opportunity is there and the need is there.
I want to ask about some of the positive signals that we're seeing from the Francophone region. Fintech is definitely a big deal, not just in the region, but across the continent and globally. But what else is interesting? What other opportunities are you seeing?
I think that entertainment, gaming, for whatever reason, when we first started seeing investments into the continent, a lot of them were more impact driven, social benefit driven. And so we weren't really seeing large investments into gaming and entertainment, things that Africans are actually very, very connected to. And so I think that we'll start seeing, movement in, and growth and scaling across, other industries rather than just fintech or rather than, ed tech or health tech, which are all very important. I'm not saying that they're not, but it's really interesting that investors are recognizing that Africans also like to watch movies and, so any of the technology around that is interesting, and they like to play games. I know that recently there was a group of 10 gaming companies across the continent that agreed to come together to create a single platform for billing purposes, and I think that's fantastic. And seeing that type of cross-border collaboration on the continent, even before the AfCFTA is actually completely implemented, is really positive. And I think we'll start seeing a lot more of this collaboration across industries. Also, logistics is huge. Last mile deliveries and those not so fancy and not so pretty types of companies are also, I think, we're going to start to see a lot more traction.
Fantastic. Are there any companies that are really exciting or that are interesting that you want to mention?
Oh, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. I can't do that because there's so many that I would get in trouble if I missed one. So, but yeah, I'm super excited about, I'm in Cameroon, where we have a very vibrant entrepreneurial startup community that's doing incredible things under incredibly difficult circumstances. And I think you'll hear a lot more about Cameroon and Cameroon startups in the next year.
Fantastic. We're looking forward to that. Thank you so much for joining us, Rebecca. It's been wonderful to hear from you, and we look forward to talking to you a lot more as Francophone Africa continues to thrive. For the audience, that's a wrap. Thank you everyone for joining us today on The Next Wave. Thank you to our guests, Molaye, Rashmi, Rebecca. We hope everyone has had a great time on the show. Don't forget to join us same time next week. As always, you can share your opinions by tweeting at us using the hashtag TheNextWaveCNBC. You can also send in your feedback via thenextwave@techcabal.com. Thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Have a wonderful day, everyone.